Hey, my name's Jose Ramirez, and I'm making this video in response to the Munk debates. I'm a week late, absolutely late, but the debate hosted Jordan Peterson, Stephen Fry, Michelle Goldberg, and Michael Eric Dyson, and I thought it was entertaining as all hell. Like, did that really just happen? I kind of want to bring up a couple points. Like Michelle Goldberg, one of the few times she quotes Stephen Fry, she mentions how she doesn't want to put words in his mouth. And she also does the same to Jordan Peterson. But towards the end of the debate, she misquotes the Vice interview with Jordan Peterson, which had its own controversy, considering that the footage itself was edited in a way to make Jordan Peterson say something pretty negatively and pretty nasty. But the interview's been out for months. You're a professional journalist. Why'd you misquote an interview that the full interview isn't even up online yet? I don't know. I found that pretty curious. Man, I honestly took this as an attempt for Michael and Michelle to try to deplatform Jordan. And I'm not saying this is the only account that Jordan has faced in this trying to happen, but I'm taking this loosely, considering that Michelle said that the moment she found out who she was going up against, she had to rewrite her stance. She had to rewrite her whole arguments. And I wonder why. I mean, edits do happen. But the moment you find out you're going up against Stephen Fry and Jordan Peterson, it all changes. Everything has to change. Okay. Mainly, I wanted to talk about a couple of the issues that Michael Eric Dyson puts up, where his point of being looked at and treated first and foremost from his group identity. I'm like, dude, if you want to bring that up, why don't we bring up the fact that cops are using racial profiling as a part of their daily job? Let's talk about how they will judge you based on the way you dress, based on the way you talk, to give them a clear indication if you're willing to do something against them, against others. They're just doing their job. On some level, I have some sympathy for cops, because when they put on that uniform, at least from residents here in South Central, they're target number one. They're not very liked here. So when he mentions that the only trigger warning that he would need is if a cop is about to shoot. Dude, if a cop pulled you over, you would make him rule the day that he ever pulled you over. Like, realistically, you can shut him down, take him to court, whatever you can. But yet, I really do doubt you kind of experience that, considering you're a Georgetown professor and you probably live in a really nice area. Who knows? I'm guessing. I don't know you. But I wonder why nobody mentions why group identity has also become a marker of systemic racism, going back to cops being allowed to racially profile people. It's a clear indication of it. I'm just saying. And I have a question for anybody listening to this video or watching it. Like, at least here in America, if blacks are represented in such a negative way, what are the causes of such misrepresentation? Because in my experience, racism doesn't just solely exist with whites. It exists with Asians. It exists with Mexicans. It exists in blacks themselves too. Like my friend who works where it's purely African Americans, they all hate white people. But when my friend decided to ask them individually what have they experienced themselves, none of them have a clear indication of giving them a reason to hate or to be prejudiced against these sort of people. But they all hate him. It's like, okay, he's not from America. He's from out of the country. That's one thing I will say, because it clearly shows through his eyes that something is really wrong in this country. And I like to attribute that to a couple of different things. Besides any of that, it was until last year that I heard that white people were the new punching bag for this new white privilege or white supremacist movement. And I think it's hysterical how you can use that one term, label somebody, and get away with saying whatever you want about this person. It's because from my point of view, anybody participating, you're just using this as an excuse to be openly racist and openly prejudiced against whoever you want, especially when they don't agree with whatever ideas you have. I absolutely lost it when he was flailing his arms up and down, when he was like, "Mommy, mommy, I want the things they were before. I want my old regime back." Like, dude, who are you talking about? You talking about Jordan Peterson? Are you talking about the crowd that's listening to you speak? Are you talking about all of Americans, all of Canadians? Like, who? Like, are these people that live in the South, small towns, the West, the East, the North? Where are these people? Because these are people we should be making examples of. Not Jordan Peterson. He's not even American. Jesus. And honestly, if you want to talk about leaving somebody in the back of a race, let's talk about our education system, right? When I graduated high school, this is going to be a personal account. There were plenty of people in my graduating class that could barely speak for themselves, that barely had any like math knowledge, that could barely spell, that could barely read. And these people are being spit out into society, expecting for them to know what's going on. Like, what kind of... I don't know what kind of logic anybody would use to defend those sorts of things. When you mention that school education, the budget at least, has been cut for the last 8 to 10 years, significantly leaving school systems to struggle with whatever money that they can get. Schools don't even offer teams. Shit, some schools barely offer like a proper program for computers, photography, art. There's none of that anymore. That's all gone. It doesn't exist for people, at least in my area. And when you leave people that far behind with barely any grammatical skills to be able to speak for themselves, do you really think they can fare well inside of a job interview? So if we're gonna talk about making some changes, let's talk about our school system. Let's talk about why you and the right you represent isn't doing anything about it. This debate is about political correctness. And this is something I truly believe, that in practice, it undermines respectfulness because it offers a bias at all times. Consideration and regulation are two different terms. Where was political correctness when the media blamed Mexicans and Latinos for the lack of job opportunities? When the actual problem was that all of these jobs are being exported to different countries that are being exploited for their cheap labor. Why aren't we holding these American corporations responsible for some of this racism that we clearly as Americans have? You know, that's all an excuse. That's all a label, realistically. And you know what? Stephen Fry said it best. We should fight back, and we should fight back through the proper democratic channels. We should talk to judges. We should talk to senators. We should talk to people that hold a significant position of power. And we should try to make change. We shouldn't allow police officers to abuse their power in a tyrannical way. And yet, nobody wants to talk about that. And if you don't want to hold the men and the women responsible for these sorts of injustices, these sorts of decisions, of like letting cops go back into their jobs, back out into the streets after them committing something seriously wrong, with whatever you say, yet you'd rather go after people who have nothing to do with this. You'd rather go after people like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Karen Strangthorn, Milo Yiannopoulos, Alex Jones. You're going after all these people with actually not doing anything about it. Like, realistically, you're just going after these people, yelling at their faces, making sure they can barely speak, pulling the fire alarms, listening to whatever your professor said that, hey, I don't like that guy's ideas, go stop him from talking. Like, what happened to the freedom of speech that we all like to enjoy? How about you stop using your freedom of speech to trying to stop other people's freedom of speech? Because that's, like, you are literally practicing inequality there. You are practicing hate speech at its finest. You know, like, let's talk about one of the biggest real issues that we have. When Florida police pulls over Florida's first black elected state attorney, Aramis Ayala. Let's talk about why he pulled her over. Let's talk about the lack of a response that he could give her to why he ran the tags. Because she asked, why do you run the tag? And he's all like, oh, we run tags all the time. Sure, dude. Sure, you didn't think that you were about to get an easy ticket. Okay. But yet we have people being attacked, like a Florida University student who tweets out a joke on April Fool's Day, and he is met with suspension. Not only that, but a proper righty, good old right people, you know what I'm saying, doxes this man, forcing him to get kicked out of his apartment, forcing him to get fired, literally destroying this man's life with lawyer debts over a racist tweet. Really? On April Fool's Day of all things? It just reminds me of the time that Fresno State kicked out one of their professors for saying something mean. Like, how appalling that you have to hold yourself morally dignified to judge these people accordingly. You're not doing anybody any favors. How about you go after judges? How about you go after police officers who are doing wrong shit? Like, go after people who are doing stuff. Don't go after people who are either getting paid for the venue, who either have to pay the venue themselves, and like leaving people who pay their hard-earned money to listen to these people, all for what? To see you go perform whatever little liberal thing you're trying to do and scream at their face to try to drown out their voice. When in reality, they're not saying anything racist. They're not saying anything bigoted. They're just expressing an intellectual discussion with facts, and yet they're met with nothing but hostility from the right. How truly misguided America has become. And the fact that Michelle, the fact that Michael are representing America in that debate, it makes me embarrassed to call myself American, because I have those two representing me. I'll see you guys later.